Further ado, please, I want to welcome today Steve Glenn. Steve has been a friend, a personal friend, for a very long time. He is also a huge friend of LIBA, a big supporter of this organization. Every time we call, he doesn't just say yes, he says, yes, but how can we make it even better? That's the kind of people you want on your side and on your team. And I can't thank him enough for what he does for this organization. He's a Nebraska entrepreneur who has launched over 40 companies. He owns Executive Travel, Glenn's True Value Stores, Batteries Plus Bulbs, the Piedmont Shopping Center, and a lot more. Today, his topic is 7 disruptive technologies that will make your business become a dinosaur in 3 years or less. Please welcome to the podium, Steve Glenn. Okay, forget the podium. We're going mobile.
Thank you, Cody. Can everybody hear me okay? Wow, what a treat for me to be here at LIBA. It's really exciting. Thank you. It's an honor for me to be here. I love LIBA. And those of you that are LIBA members, if you're like me, I've been in business 32 years. This might be the best investment I made to join an organization, Cody. You know, every day I've got to run my business. You've got to run your business, don't you? You don't have time to fight City Hall. You don't have time to do that. And here we have LIBA, all the leadership of LIBA that do that on our behalf. Isn't that amazing? That's something I'm really thankful for. So, Kobe, I honestly am very thankful for all that you do in the organization. So, with that, thank you again. I'm here to talk about 7 disruptive technologies that could make you and me dinosaurs in 3 years or less. Is that a little scary? Tim, does that scare you a little bit?
Yes.
It does, doesn't it? Okay, we're people that change is hard. We're human, right? Here's the interesting thing. Today we're going to talk about exponential technologies, exponentialism. And we have historically lived in a society and a world that has been local and linear. Local and linear. Okay? Now, I don't know about you, I'm 60-some years old. We didn't travel very far. There's just a lot of people my age that didn't travel out of Nebraska. We live locally, right? And we live linearly. What does linear mean? Okay, John Hobby Jr., I'm going to take one step, one linear step, and it is a yard long. If I take 30 of those, how far away am I? 30 yards, right? That's linear. Now we're going to talk about where we are today in the world. We're in a world that is global and exponential. Exponential is the doubling of numbers. So, if I have an exponential step, the first step is 1, then 2, then 4, and 30 exponential steps later, I've gone around the globe 26 times. Do we understand what exponential power is? And that's what we're going to talk about a lot today. If you understand the new technologies applying exponential power, you'll understand how fast it's going to hit us. It's already hitting us. The great thing about today's talk, it's impossible to follow me, isn't it? The great thing about today's talk is we're going to talk about a world that you and I have lived in, that is a world of scarcity. Scarcity of water, right? Scarcity of energy. We go to war over those things, right? We're moving to a world of abundance. This is the most exciting time to be alive in the history of mankind. And I hope after today's presentation, you'll walk out of here with a big smile on your face, not worried about the massive change you're going to see. Because if you're aware of it, and if you do something about it, and apply this, you will be having a very enjoyable time. So, with that, if I figure out how to do this, we're going to talk about 7 exponential technologies. You can see them here. I put up 13. I don't have time to cover all of them, so I said, how do I get this down to 7? Artificial intelligence, voice recognition, autonomous vehicles, big data, infinite sensors and networks. So, with that, I'm first going to explain linear, as we did. We talked about linears like this. Exponentialism is like this. You know what a hockey stick is? When it gets to the end of the hockey stick, what happens? Whoosh, like that. That's what you've got on exponentials. And the difference is the disruption that's going to happen. So let's look at the 6 Ds of exponential technology. Now, if you understand these 6, you can apply them to any technology. So it's important. I'll give you this deck afterwards. You don't have to write any of this down, taking pictures. If you understand these 6 Ds of exponential technology, you'll understand and apply them to any technology. So what happens when it's digitized? It basically becomes represented by zeros and ones, right? Very simple. So from there you go into what I call the period of deception. I'm going to take solar energy. And even though I'm not talking about solar energy as one of the technologies today, you remember 60 years ago, weren't they talking about solar energy? Didn't anybody put one of those boxes on your roof 50 years ago? And it was very inefficient. Great technology. It had all this hype, right? So what I'm going to show you now is it has all this hype in the beginning, and then all of a sudden it doesn't kind of meet the expectations. So it sits there in this trough of deception. Well, let's talk about the trough of deception. So what happens is the growth of the technology is it starts at such a small base, 0.001. And even if you double it, 0.002, it may take 20 years to literally get to a 1. So it sits in that trough for years and years. And people say, you know, that technology, it had a big promise. I thought it was going to go gangbusters. And it just sits there. So what applies to most technology today that's exponential? Let's take a look at computers. What happens to the power of computers every 12 to 24 months? Okay. Power doubles, price halves, right? That's been going on for 40 years. 40 years. So the same thing happened to solar energy. The price came down. Most people in this room don't realize that last year, the price of solar energy did an amazing thing. It fell below the price of buying it off the grid. You know, think about that. Think of the power of that. That means it's cheaper to have solar energy than to buy it from your friendly utility. Is LES a sponsor today?
LES is a sponsor.
Good. So, think of the excitement of that. And it's all because of this. It follows the exact same method. Solar energy. And we're not even talking about it. So here you have the Gardner curve. The Gardner curve, I don't know if you have a pointer on this one. It's not.
The round button.
Don't press that. Okay, here we go. So you've got this technology trigger. You've got this inflated expectations. Then it sits down in this trough of disillusionment. Now, what causes it to move from this trough to the slope of enlightenment? Most of the time, it's a very simple thing. Okay? I want you to think about the internet. Okay, what happened? When was the internet formed? Anybody know? It's actually in the 60s. You think Alfred did it? So here we have the 1960s. It basically was a government thing, run on Unix. Okay? Remember cryptic code? Where you type cryptic code in the computer? What happened in 1975? A gentleman named Mark Andreessen created Mosaic. Basically, the platform for Windows. Right? So suddenly you had an easy-to-use user interface. Once technology has an easy-to-use interface, it goes exponential. What happened to the World Wide Web, the internet, once there was an easy-to-use interface? In 1993, okay, you had actually this mosaic born, and we had 26 websites. 1993. Get that, my company was started before the internet. That makes me feel old, okay? 1996, there were 10,000 websites. Less than 24 months later. 1998, there were millions of websites. Why? Easy to use interface. So, then we hit this area of disruption. The third D is disruption. You're going to see an interesting thing. Any car rental companies here today? Okay, we guys all heard of Uber, right? Let's look at this. In 2014, car rentals were almost 50% of the business expenses for transportation. Uber is 20%. 2016, Uber was over 50%. Would you call it disruptive? Now, maybe it wasn't as much as the car rentals as the taxi cabs, right? Probably affected taxi cabs even more. But that's a disruptive technology. Okay. Now then we go to a really cool thing, the next three, demonetization. What does that mean? Simply, you take money out of the equation. Think of, what's that you see on the left side? Okay, see that Kodak film? Remember Kodak? Kodak was formed by George Eastman in 1884. In 1896, they actually formed the official company and created film. So how did Kodak make their money? They sold film, cameras, and they developed the film, right? Most of you here are too young to remember that, aren't you? Okay, so Kodak, one of the world's biggest companies, in 1996, had 140,000 employees. Can you imagine that? Their worth, their capitalization was $26 billion. In 2012, in January, they filed for bankruptcy. 2012, 6 years ago, one of the largest companies in the world. Now let me tell you about also Kodak. In 1975, a guy named Steve, good name, Steve Sasson, actually worked for Kodak. And he created the first digital camera. The first digital camera was the size of a toaster, weighed 8 pounds, and took a .001 megapixel picture. He took it to the board of directors of Kodak. And he says, here's the next wave for cameras and pictures. And what do they tell him? That will kill our business. Right? They were right. Now let me tell you about what also happened in 2012. There's a company called Instagram. Have you heard of Instagram? It was actually formed in 2010. 2010, Instagram. It had 13 employees in April of 2012. It was basically bought by Facebook for $1 billion, 3 months after Kodak declared bankruptcy, and they're in the exact same business. So, here you have a technology, total disruption of a multi-billion-dollar, one of the largest companies in the world, and technology displaced them. So, here's an interesting thing about software. You guys know this. Once you create that first piece of software, what does it cost to duplicate it? What's the second piece cost you? Larry? Nothing, right? Once it digitized, the second one doesn't cost you anything. Isn't that a good business to be in? It doesn't cost you anything, so then you can scale. Now I'm going to point out these 9 companies. Does anybody, you've heard of all these. These are some of the 9 richest companies in the world. What's the of these companies. Skype, Google, Facebook, YouTube. What is it? They're internet-based. They're all free. Think about it. The biggest companies in the world are based on giving it away. They build it on a freemium model, meaning to you and I as a consumer, it doesn't cost anything. Now, it doesn't mean that they don't charge somebody something. What do they charge? A business to access me, right? Isn't that what Facebook does? I become a Facebook user, then they sell that to an insurance company that wants to access me as a Facebook user, and the insurance company pays Facebook to access me. It's a freemium model. So, the next area is a dematerialization. And that means, of course, you guys don't carry a camera on you, do you? What do you carry? What do you got? Your phone, right? It's the vanishing of goods and services themselves. Now, in your pocket, you got your iPhone, right? And you've got that iPhone that does what? What do you use your iPhone for? Taking pictures, games, GPS. If you took the value and the cost of that software when it was originally founded, your iPhone has value of $900,000. All those services, when you could buy them when they were originally founded, amazing. So, once again, your phone goes onto your iPhone or your iPad. You don't need a phone anymore, do you? Dematerialization. And the last one is cool thing, democratization. What happened to a lot of things like the newspaper? It's online, right? What happened to the one ads? You don't have to have a paper to do the one ads. How about Craigslist? You've heard of it? It's free to have, right? It's affordable to everybody. It's accessible. It's free. And that's the world ahead of us. So, now I'd like to focus on the 7 disruptive technologies, and we're going to go through these one by one after I get a drink. So, voice recognition. Okay, who uses Siri, Share, Alexa? 65% of smartphone owners use voice assistants. And voice recognition, right? Now, here's an interesting thing. In the service business that I'm in, VR and AI will be massively disruptive. And why do I say that? Look at the service business. It basically involves 4 elements. Looking, right? Looking, reading, writing, and integrating that knowledge. Well, what's coming? This is what my customer service agents do, right? So what's going to happen? In many cases, computers can do it better, cheaper, faster. You've got bots, you've got voice recognition, you apply artificial intelligence to it. And today, a lot of the questions can be answered by artificial intelligence. That's getting better every day, exponentially. Now, here's an interesting thing. How about Alexis? How many have it in their home? Okay, what do you use it for, Brian? Wow, you're a heavy user. How do you know?
It wakes me up in the morning.
Wakes you up in the morning. Anybody use it for music or music? TV? You can set your TV to it and say, turn on 10-11 news, right? That's today.
Turn on KFOR.
Hey, turn on
KLIN.
I want to hear Kobe. I want to hear Kobe, right?
Radio.
Radio. Okay, this shows a lot of the action that you can use. Now here's an interesting thing. How many use your apps on your phone? This is going to happen really, really fast. And it saddens me because I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars building apps, okay, with AI and VR, okay? What is an app? It's a user interface into the information. With AI and VR, do I need an app? I don't need an app. What? Think about that. For you businesses here that are app-centric, you better move to the next wave. You better be AI-centric. Because that is today. An app is simply access into it. All right. Cryptocurrency. Now I sound really cool, don't I? Bitcoin? Anybody got Bitcoin? Come on. Sure. This is fun, right? It's going down. It's been a tough week. So, think about your credit card. Any bankers here? Come on, there's some bankers. All right, got a banker that'll visit the back, right? Yeah. Okay, thank you. That credit card, well, we're merchants. How many merchants are here that pay a credit card fee? Yeah. What do you pay? 3%. 2.5, 3%. Think about that. Tim, you want to pay Andy for something, you have to pay 3% just to transfer it from your account to his account? Is that sustainable? Do you really think that's sustainable today? Now let's look at a company called American Airlines. $40 billion in sales. Wow. And how do you buy an airline ticket today? On a credit card. Well, imagine that. Even at 2%, Americans spending $800 billion a year to a bank to collect money from consumers for their airline ticket. Is that sustainable? Larry? No. Now, if I'm American Airlines, wouldn't I put a whole department on that issue and figure something out to save $800 million, probably more than $1 billion? So cryptocurrency is blockchain, and it allows you in a very secure environment to do certain things, one of which is transfer funds. You can do a lot of things with it. We don't have time to go through the details, but my point is, if you're saying what's going to happen in the future, what's going to happen in the near future, there will be disruption in the payment process. All right, now we get into some fun stuff. Autonomous vehicles. What happened in the city of Lincoln this week? Anybody know? Yes. Autonomous vehicles. Lincoln, Nebraska? They launched autonomous vehicles, right? Now here's the crazy thing. Autonomous vehicles, I've got a little chart there that shows it's not quite accurate, but it's very, very close. Now at CES, which is the big computer show in Las Vegas in January, General Motors did something that nobody really paid much attention to. They said one of their largest plants in Michigan, they were going to build cars without steering wheels or pedals. Now that's pretty earth-shattering, isn't it, Perry? Now here's even more earth-shattering. They're going to do it in 2019. Okay, let me repeat that. 2019. Now you don't have one of the largest companies in the world invest billions upon billions upon billions in something that they can't sell commercially. Okay, the only thing keeping them from selling that will be the geopolitical issues of will Lincoln, Nebraska allow it? Will the state of Nebraska allow it? Will Iowa allow it? It's political now. It's not technology that's going to be the pushback on this. This is the geopolitical. Now I want you to also think about what that will affect in your life. It doesn't even have to do with driving it or not driving it. Do you really want to own a parking garage in the city of Lincoln with autonomous vehicles? Okay? I sat with a city official yesterday and I said, how many parking garages do you own? They said, a lot. And I said, you know what they're going to be worth in 5 years? I don't want to own a bond for them, Tim. Don't sell me any parking garage bonds, okay? Because those babies, the only value to them will be tearing them down in hopes that the real estate is worth more than the garage torn down. Okay. Big data. This is the fun part. All the data we have today is siloed in many different silos. And I use travel for an example here, travel and friction, social responsibility, all these different things. And what's going to happen is that data will be able to be used, will be able to use and sliced and diced in many different ways. If you don't realize it, Larry, if you shop at Target and use their Target card, they know you buy 2% milk. They know you buy Scott's fertilizer. They know that your dog eats Alpo. Can you imagine the power of data and how it's going to be used? It's going to be used positively, but it's also going to be used negatively. And that's one of the challenges of our time. Now the next one is infinite computing, or the power of computing. Now one of the restrictions of getting into business years ago, remember when you had to buy a server, and now what do? Simply go in the cloud, don't you? You can access that. Have you heard of Watson? Who owns Watson? IBM. One of the most powerful computers in the world. And you realize Steve Glenn can rent Watson today. Isn't that amazing? I can rent it. The most powerful computer in the world. And I can build a business on it. That's available to us today and it wasn't yesterday. And that is some of the power of exponentialism. Now sensors and networks are next. And the fun thing is, I call it sensors and networks. A lot of people call it IoT, the Internet of Things. Okay? So does anybody have a doorbell on Ring? Anybody? Okay, Jack, tell us about it. What does it do when I go up and push the button? Okay, so it goes right to Jack's iPhone. And Jack, can you talk to the person? Jack can talk to the person on his front porch, and he can say to them, you know, I'm in the basement right now. I can't come to the door, even though he's at the hotel listening to our speech today. And that person doesn't know the difference. The Internet of Things. So there are trillions of items like doorbells that are being attached to the Internet. Here's an example of travel where you scan your boarding pass, it shares the information, the car drives up. I won't have to do a thing. I check in, I don't even have to check into a hotel. I walk in, I've got it on my cell phone, it's telling me to go to room 56. And I hold my cell phone up to the door, and it lets me in. The Internet of Things. That's available today, ladies and gentlemen. That's not tomorrow. So, here's the good news. How are we doing for time? Do I get 5?
You've got 10.
10, go. Here's the good news. Successful businesses are early adopters, okay? We have unprecedented access to data, and we have personal relationships, and many of us are very profitable. Many companies today are experiencing the most profits they've ever had. That's the good news. Here's some of the challenges. We focus operationally most of the time, don't we? I mean, it's day to day. You got to get the payroll paid, and you focus on get through the day. Do you have a lot of time to spend thinking about cryptocurrency and how it's going to affect you? No. So that's one of our difficulties. Many businesses, mine include, use a transactional model. Maybe stocks do, they used to, maybe they're going away from that. Okay, but we're using transactional model in a demonetizing world. Is something going to happen? Remember that list of 9 largest companies in the world? What do they charge? Nothing? Demonetized? There's a book called Free. If you haven't read it, it talks about the freemium model. You need to read it and see if you can apply it to your company. The next one is, our profits hypnotize us. Let's face it. If you're the most profitable you've ever been in the company history, do you wake up and say, I gotta change this? You don't. You don't. When things are going great, you don't disrupt yourself. And that's where we're at today. We don't put ourselves in a position to change. And of course, speed is going to be the killer app for us in the future. We've got to deal with this because exponentialism is coming at us so fast. And we've got to deal with it. Now, think about this. These are the big 5 whales. Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, Google, and Apple, they'll spend massive dollars to disrupt and demonetize us. If you think about it, do any of these actually do new things? Do they create things today? My argument is these are the 5 big banks of the world. They simply buy new companies and figure out how to execute them flawlessly and at scale. So my business will be attacked by them, your business will be attacked by them, because they are the banks of the world. And they'll try to disrupt us. The problem we have, you've heard this before, if we don't disrupt ourselves, somebody else will. It's that simple. All right. And we also are focused on self-preservation. You know, I want a job. You want a job? You want a business? We focus on that instead of disrupting. Here's an interesting thing. And Kobe, most people, when they say you're in business, they think, oh, you're a business person to make gobs of money, right? They don't realize we're working on a 1 or 2 point margin, aren't we? Profits are just small. So, even if there's a small disruption, that's going to affect us. It's going to affect our profits and our profitability. So, I'm not like this guy that will stand up and scare you. I'm actually going to bring you solutions. How's that? You ever heard a speaker bring solutions instead of problems? I'm better than a politician, John Bobby Jr. Okay. My 3 solutions to this are simple. First is build a skunk works. Does anybody know what a skunk works is? Okay, this is cool. 1943, we were in war with the Germans, right? So, our military goes to Lockheed Martin, California, and says, we need a jet fighter plane. We don't have one. Lockheed looks at itself and says, you know, we got really smart engineers, scientists, everything, but we're so slow, we can't do this. So they built the skunk works. What's a skunk works? Basically, they said, they went outside their facility, they put a tent up next door, they put a fence around it, and they took their best and brightest engineers, and they put them, and they separated it from the mothership. Now think about this. What will a mothership do to innovation and change? It will kill it. It will kill it. 1943, Lockheed Martin, they were just Lockheed then, they didn't have the Martin. They were smart enough to recognize, if we do this internally, all this bureaucracy lays over the top of it, we'll never get it done. So they put in this tent, fenced around it, best and brightest people. Get this. This is amazing. 143 days later, the U.S. had its first fighter plane. 143 days later. That's the power of the skunk. And if you think about it, if you're an organization that wants to deal with this disruptive technology, you have to go outside your mothership.
Now you're at 5.
So I'm at 5, great. All right. Prepare for immersion model. You've got to look at changing your model. If you're a model that's based on what? Transactions, you have to look at freemium models, other models. I could go into great detail, but I have 4 minutes left. And then last but not least, is if you are app-centric, you've got to look at the next wave, which is AI, and you've got to leapfrog the apps. It's critically important that you consider that. There are 3 books I'd ask you to consider reading. And these 3 have really helped me with this process. The first is called Bold. And Bold will go through all the 6 Ds and all the issues of all the disruptive technologies and exponentialism. You'll understand it better. The second is an organizational book called Exponential Organizations, and it talks how you have to change your organization to deal with disruption. And it's very enlightening, very difficult to try to apply in your company. And the third might be the most encouraging book that you might read this year. And it's called Abundance. And as I started the speech, I explained to you how we're moving from a society of scarcity to one of great abundance. Think of a world that has free energy from the sun and the wind. Do we have to go to war in the Middle East? Do my grandsons have to die on the battlefield? Think of a world where half of the deaths of our world are because of water that's impure, which it is today. Most people don't recognize that. Think of a world that can apply clean water technology from free energy from the sun to clean that water, and half the deaths of this world don't take place. That's a world of abundance. It's a world of our future. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an honor for me to be here and present to you today. Thank you so much.